Hi everybody. I want to start by saying thank you very much to the IAI committee and particularly to Dr. Lorna O'Donnell for inviting me to give this keynote lecture. I'm very sorry you can't all join us in Belfast this year, but we look forward to welcoming you in the future. So community archaeology is an important but relatively new field in our discipline. So I thought I would focus my lecture on both community archaeology and engaged research and just give you an overview of some of the work that goes on in Queen's and that has been done over the years. So I co-direct the Centre for Community Archaeology in Queen's with Dr. Colm Donnelly. We have a fantastic team and this comprises Dr. Siobhan McDermott, Dr. Cormac McSparran, Dr. Heather Montgomery, Sarah Gormley, Rory O'Boyle, Brian Sloan and Ruth Logue. And also a former member of our team, Grace McAllister, is currently undertaking PhD research on community archaeology. So if we start by looking at a number of strategic plan documents from recent years from both north and south of the border, it's evident that community archaeology is very much a recognised component and that the development of a strong community archaeology sector will bring many benefits both to archaeology and to broader society. So in terms of archaeology, sites and landscapes will be protected and cherished as communities, have a stronger sense of place and belonging. The well-being aspects of being involved in heritage projects are also being increasingly recognised, with research highlighting how involvement in community archaeological projects can enhance both mental and physical well-being. So for example, the Treasures the Past, Enrich the Future document produced in 2018, it made the important observation that research has demonstrated how volunteers in the heritage sector had higher levels of life satisfaction than did the general populace or other volunteers. So that's a really important point for us. The Royal Irish Academy's Archaeology 2025 Strategic Pathway for Archaeology in Ireland, it focused largely on the situation for the Republic, and it's noted in Pillar 6, Maximising Impact, that a range of community archaeology projects have been successfully undertaken in recent years, and that these included things like conservation projects, open days and excavations, graveyard surveys, geophysical surveys, aerial kite surveys and excavation. So with the exception of conservation projects, the following lecture will show that we in Queen's have been primarily through our Centre for Community Archaeology undertaking a range of similar activities within Northern Ireland. So in 2018, the then Department of Culture, Heritage and the Gaeltacht undertook a public consultation on Heritage Ireland 2030. And theme 3, Communities and Engagement, it posed the question, how can we work better together and engage all our communities under Heritage Ireland 2030? So we're eagerly awaiting the outcome of the public consultation, which I presume will be happening in the not too distant future. The Heritage Council has led a number of community archaeology initiatives, including their Adopt a Monument programme, and this helps communities become actively involved in the conservation and interpretation of their local archaeological and cultural heritage sites. If we turn to the north then, launched in autumn 2020, the Historic Environment Division's Archaeology 2030, a strategic approach for Northern Ireland, it states that one of their aspirations is a clearer research focus to facilitate citizen science engagement, enhance the role of archaeology in the school curriculum, add to the research value of community excavations and assist in empowering community partners. 2020 was also a landmark year for community archaeology on the island with the publication of a book, Partnership and Participation, Community Archaeology in Ireland, and this was edited by Christine Baker, who works as a community archaeologist for Fingal County Council. So this important publication brought together community archaeology case studies from across Ireland, and it really did showcase the variety of work that has already been undertaken in this developing field. So community archaeology, it also has an important role to play in the university sector, certainly in the north. The UK university sector has a research audit every 7 years, and this is done subject by subject, and it's entitled the Research Excellence Framework, or as we call it, REF. So over the past 15 years, there has been recognition by the UK government that university research should be impactful to wider society. So in 2014, 15% of the audit score was devoted to impact case studies, and then that percentage rose to 25% for the 2021 exercise, which is currently being assessed. So the message is very clear: academic research has to have societal benefit. But given the huge level of interest there is amongst the public, to find out more about life in the past, archaeology can easily fulfil this role as a discipline. So also then within Queen's, engaged research is a key component of the university's research strategy, and there is an increasing drive to have our research align with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So in terms of archaeology, UN Sustainable Development Goal 11, and in particular 11.4, it's of relevance to archaeology, and it aims to strengthen efforts to protect and safeguard the world's cultural and natural heritage. So that's just a little bit of context. I now just want to move on to look at the development of community archaeology in Queen's and the nature of our work. So some pioneering projects. Well, the first time members of the public participated in archaeological excavations that was designed to be a training excavation, particularly for them, happened way back in the distant past in 1998 and 1999, and it was actually directed by Colm Donnelly and myself, and you can see youthful versions of us in this picture along with Neil Yeaman, who works for Historic Environment Division. So basically, members of our class, which was a certificate course introducing people to archaeology, they had a chance to then go out and work for a fortnight in both 1998 and 1999 on a post-medieval site in Rayfad in County Fermanagh. So then a bit later on, in 2002, the Centre for Archaeological Fieldwork was established at Queen's, and this followed a successful tender to the then Environment and Heritage Service to undertake all of their fieldwork requirements. So one of the first excavations that was undertaken by the CAF on a potential prehistoric site occurred adjacent to Thornhill College outside Derry, and it involved two local schools. So these were Maydown Primary and St Oliver Plunkett's Primary, and it was led by their teacher Peter Monaghan. So they had actually secured funding from BT for a cross-community archaeological project where Catholic and Protestant children would study their local past together. So we facilitated the involvement of the schools in the participation on a genuine archaeological excavation, and this was the first time that school children had ever worked on an excavation in Northern Ireland. So it was well acclaimed, and as a result we won 2 awards in the Northern Ireland Business Education Awards for 2002. So the Environment and Heritage Service Client Officer for the CAF, Dr. Paul Logue, he was very keen to develop community involvement in archaeological excavations when he took over this role in 2007. And the first of these took place in 2009 at Balachi Bawn in Derry. And this was then followed by another community project at Castle Ward in County Down on the National Trust property. And the objective was to try to find evidence of the original early 18th century house. And in this instance, both school children and adult volunteers participated in the project. So we think it's fair enough to say that we've been at the heart of the development and delivery of community archaeology within Northern Ireland. We've been involved in a whole range of different projects, and we very much encourage young people and older people of all ages to get involved in our projects. So in 2017, we decided to retire the Centre for Archaeological Fieldwork and rebrand the unit as the Centre for Community Archaeology, because this now really formed the focus of much of our work. The launch of the CCA occurred as part of our inaugural Discovery Conference, and this is an event that we now organise annually with the Ulster Archaeological Society. So it's now in its 4th year, and it brings together individuals from across the sectors to talk about the archaeological work that's been undertaken in Ulster that year. So between 2015 and 2020, our CCA team has undertaken 20 community-based archaeological excavations, and these have occurred in 5 of the 6 counties of Northern Ireland. But I have to say, we're about to engage in a major project in County Fermanagh later this year, so we haven't forgotten about it, and it's my native county, so I'm very, very pleased about that, obviously. This is just a sort of an infographic that was produced in relation to CCA's work and included then in our REF 2021 environment statement. So we've worked with 41 organisations on community projects, and these include 6 landscape partnerships. We've had over 4,971 school children participants and 1,588 volunteer participants. And we've had nearly 10,000 other public interactions. So we're very proud of the impact and the reach that our projects have had. And this was really cemented for us in a Queen's Award. So Queen's has staff awards, and in 2020, the Centre for Community Archaeology won the award for community impact. So you can see the team here and receiving the award at the sort of glitzy and glamorous affair. But it was very nice for us to, to have recognition from the university that they actually valued our work and that we were making a difference. So yeah, the CCA then, it also acts as an umbrella organisation for groups based within archaeology and paleoecology at Queen's that also engage in public outreach. So these would be particularly the Ulster Archaeological Society and the Young Archaeologists Club. So the UAS then, I'm sure it needs no introduction. It's a very long-standing historical society, and it was created to support the Ulster Journal of Archaeology, and it was founded on the 15th of October 1947 at Queen's, so nearly 75 years ago. So Queen's and the UAS have this very long-standing and very strong connection. And there you can see Rory O'Boyle, who is the president of the Ulster Archaeological Society, and he's a member of our Centre for Community Archaeology as well. Then at the other end of the sort of the age range, if you like, we've got our Young Archaeology Club, and we've been running a branch of the CBA's YAC in Queen's since 2006, when Naomi Carver and I set up the club. So it's run by volunteer staff and students, and we tend to meet once a month on a Saturday. Each theme would tend to have a session, so it can involve a lot of diverse type activities, all related to the past. So it could range from a field trip to washing artifacts, to making exotic South American masks, or my personal favorite, of course, which was when we mummified Barbies, and I really enjoyed that session. So Naomi and I wrote a history of our club, over the 14 years that it had existed, which you can read about in Christine Baker's book. So we also get the members then involved in our other activities, because there's certain months of the year when we're happy to have them indoors, but then, when it's nice weather, we really want to get them out and about and experiencing, archaeology out in the open. So we'll get them involved in our experimental archaeology festivals or excavation, and they always enjoy these. So here you can see some of the intrepid archaeologists working away at the excavations of Moira Domain in 2019. So yes, our motto very much is archaeology for all, and we really do encourage the local community, young and old, to become involved in our investigations. And we try to publicize our events as much as possible, before they happen. And we try to actually invite, members of local communities to come and get involved, even if they're sort of, individuals and not part of maybe like a school group or whatever. So in terms of school groups then, it's not just all about excavation. We also try to get them involved in other activities. So you can see Grace here, getting kids to try their hand at making pottery, and decorating them in the sort of techniques that people maybe would have used in the prehistoric past. Obviously we do have supervised excavation, but we also try to be creative, and do things like measured surveys. And we've had very good feedback from school teachers that they really like archaeological projects, because in a way we and the teachers can teach the kids things like numeracy in a really fun and engaging way that they otherwise might not really be too fussed about learning. So if you get them out with tape measures and they're actually doing something very practical, they don't realise they're doing numeracy and they actually quite enjoy it. I suppose building on this then, quite recently, back in June 2019, Dr. Siobhan McDermott and Grace McAllister led a geophysics session, so some geophysics workshops, so up in Antrim Gardens in Portrush. So this involved 4 local schools, and it was a Piece 4 project. And again, they put a lot of time into planning this. They had, little grids that the school children had to kind of follow and work out. So there was a lot of numeracy and mathematics involved in this session, but again, the participants seemed to really enjoy it. In terms of adult volunteers, one of the things that always sort of strikes home is the fact that so many people have working on an archaeological excavation on their bucket list. It's sort of one of the things they really want to do. And we would have had about an average of 265 adult volunteers on our excavations each year over the past 6 years. So we're quite pleased about that. And, again, we would have maybe people who are retired or maybe people who just aren't working. But it's just a really good experience for them to kind of meet like-minded people, get out in the open air and, do some physical activity that also involves, using your brain at the same time. We've sort of also in more recent years moved into experimental archaeology, and this has been particularly led by Brian Sloan, who you can see here. And we've been sort of doing this with people like Liam Campbell, Dr. Liam Campbell from the Lough Neagh Landscape Partnership. So we do a lot of things like building a kiln and then making pots, and we've tried our hand at copper smelting, basketry, making wattle and daub fences, so it's all very kind of practical. Other things we've done, again, pottery, because children tend to enjoy being able to mess about with bits of clay and actually then recreate the pots. Brian has led flint snapping. We've had rope making, using nettle fibres, basket making. We've even been working away on a log boat. Now it's taken quite a number of years to get this done, but I think it's nearly finished at this stage, and hopefully this year we might get out and get it finished. And then you can see Liam Og with his cuisine here, so he even tried his hand at a bit of traditional cooking. So in terms of sort of engaged research, just projects that I've been involved in particularly are things like the Ramelton osteoarchaeology project. So excavations at this site were directed by Shane Delaney of IAC Limited on behalf of Transport Infrastructure Ireland and Roscommon County Council. So as you can see from the aerial shot, it's a secular cemetery basically. So we were awarded the tender then to undertake the osteological analysis of the substantial population of human remains that were discovered during the excavation, and we're in the process of writing up the project book at the moment. But over the past few years, we've shared information about the project findings during the Republic of Ireland's Science Weeks, and this has been in collaboration with the National Museum of Ireland as well as the other project partners. And in 2018-19, we were able to run these as practical osteoarchaeology workshops, and these were aimed at local transition students. And then last year, because of COVID, we ended up running a similar online event, you know, again for that sort of age group, the teenage age group. We've given lots of public lectures on the findings, and we even had a sort of an appearance in the T.G. Catter's DNA Culture programme last autumn. And at the moment, we've just come to the end of, well, we're not quite at the end, but we're sort of moving our way through the takabuti research project. So this has been a project I've been long engaged in, and for anybody who doesn't know, takabuti is she's the young Egyptian woman whose mummified remains you can see displayed in the Ulster Museum in Belfast. So this has been a long-standing collaboration with the National Museums of Northern Ireland and colleagues in the University of Manchester. So the project attracted a lot of media attention when we released some details about our new findings on the 185th anniversary of her original unwrapping in Belfast. A couple of weeks ago, we just published our edited book. And this, we were able to get subvention to help us with this, so it retails at only $9.99, even though it's a full colour book. And we're hoping that it's going to be affordable to families who visit the museum, and they'll be able to, you know, get themselves a copy, because, you know, I remember as a child, you know, takabuti was a major influence on me, and I always really wanted to go and see her, and, you know, she's probably one of the reasons why I became an archaeologist. But I always found it a bit frustrating we didn't know more about her, so we're kind of hoping now that that book will help, you know, people be able to actually go and visit her mummified remains, and then actually go and read about her as a person when she was alive, and how she died, and, you know, how she was mummified. And our research has also enabled the panels in the museum to actually be updated and, you know, include a lot more information about her. And on the 8th of May, we're holding a free online seminar day, you know, in which all the researchers who contributed to the book will give short presentations on their research. So that's a free online event, so anyone's welcome to join it. So if any of you want to sign up, you're very welcome. And then we're hoping to make those lectures available, you know, as an educational resource afterwards, because the Northern Ireland primary curriculum, you know, contains bits on ancient Egypt, and a lot of local schools would have taken their pupils to visit takabuti. So we're hoping they'll be able to, you know, use the book and then use these lectures in a classroom context. So 2019 was a very busy year for the CCA, and Colm and I summarised our projects in this Ulster Journal of Archaeology article. So, you know, we were at sites like Moira, you know, excavating, you know, the domain, and then at Ballykinler undertaking a military archaeology project. So there was a whole range of different types of projects occurred that year. But then, as was the case for everybody across the world, 2020 was a bit of a, well, let's just say it was a different year. It wasn't quite so eventful. And basically we had all these plans, you know, I had so many different trips around the world planned for different projects, but everything ground to a halt. And all our scheduled community-based fieldwork projects basically had to be paused or cancelled. So what about then sort of community interaction in the middle of a pandemic? Well, we were able to recommence fieldwork with geophysical surveys from August 2020 onwards. But with social distancing and no public participation in the surveys. So there were quite sort of solitary events with just a couple of our team out on site. And here you can see over on the left, Heather, you know, sanitising the equipment between use, you know, so there was a lot of precautions had to be taken, and it just didn't obviously have the same buzz and wasn't the same kind of, you know, number of people involved. And then, you know, we weren't able to really do things that we would normally have done, like our public lectures, our open evenings, our weekends, you know, site tours, you know, things like this you can see in the main photograph. No hidden history workshops where we would have introduced members of the public to online resources, but while also giving them a chance to tell us about sites in their local area. So we couldn't do any of that, which was all a bit sort of disheartening. But then if you sort of take the Hidden History Roadshow and the online resources and you combine them, well, you know, what do you get? Well, you get a brainwave by Dr. Siobhan McDermott, and she came up with the Community Archaeology online toolkit. So again, this was supported by the Queen's Engaged Research, and it was undertaken in partnership with the Lough Neagh Landscape Partnership. Have to say as well, it was also partly inspired by the Heritage Council and the National Museum of Ireland's Know Your 5K programme. And you know, you can see here, so there's Siobhan, and you can see the Engaged Research Advisory Board document, and we were very pleased to see that the Community Archaeology Toolkit actually featured in this university document. Okay, so in terms of sort of the kind of the launch of the toolkit, well, it's basically, so what is the toolkit? Well, the toolkit is basically an online resource, and the idea is that it empowers community partners to engage with their kind of wider archaeological research agenda using this whole range of online resources that we're fortunate to have available to us. So it kind of represents a distillation of the knowledge, expertise and experience that has been gained over the past 10 years by the CCA team. And it aims to help participants to develop their understanding of the past, their understanding of the nature of archaeological research, and just, you know, the practicalities involved with community-based fieldwork projects and how these should be structured and delivered. So the toolkit, it's made available through a free version of Canvas, and Canvas is the virtual learning environment that we would use in Queen's to support our teaching and learning. It's structured as a series of 6 bite-sized weekly sessions, and these are then supported by discussions which are also then hosted through the Canvas forum, and then, you know, they've got links to other online resources. So the toolkit was launched through our various social media channels in September 2020, and we were really pleased that the 30 places that were available, you know, on the first sort of round of the course, you know, they filled up very quickly. And we're now currently developing a revised and larger online platform through the Lough Neagh Landscape Partnership, which will hopefully then be going live in summer 2021. So media interest, well, we think media interest is really important in community archaeology projects, you know, and our work does generate a huge amount of interest within local communities, but it also then, you know, attracts the associated sort of attention in the media. So this is just one example, and believe it or not, this is County Tyrone. It's not like Spain or Italy or somewhere. This was in our really, really hot summer back in 2018. So Rory O'Boyle was directing excavations at Mountjoy Fort. So this was basically a sort of a lost fort that there was map evidence for, but that it wasn't, you know, hadn't been really found, you know, out in the field. And we had, you know, we had things like we had an open day, and it was like a huge attendance. We had 350 visitors, and the level of interest, it's really interesting because the fort lies in a perceived CNR area, so that's Catholic, Nationalist and Republican. But the fort itself, it was actually constructed in 1602 as part of the Tudor Army's occupation of the heartland of the Gaelic Confederates. And you know, this is evident in things like, you know, the maps refer to the village as Mountjoy, so it's named after the English general who led the invasions of Tyrone, but the local population continue to call the area by its Gaelic name, which is Brocha. So this is a case, you know, where archaeology can be used to promote social cohesion, you know, and again, I'm going back to the Treasures of the Past, Enrich the Future document, you know, which was produced by Northern Ireland's Department of Communities, and it states, understanding our heritage helps us to understand each other. There is evidence to suggest that heritage can promote an understanding of the past that is not only better, but shared. So, and that's something within a Northern Irish context that is so important, and again, that we very much are keen to promote. So communicating with the public, like I say, it is an essential part of the work we do. And there's no better way of reaching a wide audience than through broadcast media. And all of the team, are like old hands at this stage of, talking to the media, whether it's the television or radio. So this is just a list of the sort of appearances they made in 2019. So you can see there's quite a lot. And a lot of it would be BBC or the BBC Radio Ulster or UTV, so it's kind of our local media outlets. Now, another sort of aspect about communication is interaction with public representatives. So in Northern Ireland there are 11 district councils, and we've had dignitaries from 5 of them visit our community excavations and festivals between 2018 and 19. And I have to say, Brian Sloan even managed to have a chat with the then Secretary of State, Karen Bradley, who just was on a visit to Downpatrick and called by the excavation, and he kind of nabbed her and made sure he gave her the tour of the site and, bent her ear a bit. But just in these different pictures, you can notice sort of important looking people with chains. So these would be the mayors of a lot of the different councils. So of course we always welcome them out, because it's good for our project, and it's good to promote archaeology and just show, the public appetite for archaeology and the enthusiasm for our discipline. Okay, so just to sum up here, what have we actually learned from all this? Well, there's just a few things that's worth sharing with you. We've learned it's really important to respect communities and their representative, and this is both during the development and the delivery of their project. They may not always be right, but then we're not always right, but they're always due respect and courtesy. Harness local knowledge. Locals know much more about the history and heritage of a specific area than we do. Engage with them, involve them in compiling the research design. Partnership is the best approach since it enables the bespoke development of a project in an area through discussion. Site selection is a crucial issue. It can be more difficult to deliver tendered projects because sometimes there's unrealistic expectations and you have to do a bit of managing of these expectations, and also health and safety issues may not have been given due consideration. So this can be in relation to site selection, location or accessibility. And then lastly, involve all the community. So do this through things like lectures, open evenings, print and broadcast media. And then, do this during the project, but then after the project, actually make an effort to go back and at least, deliver at least one public lecture in the aftermath, so that it means then that everyone has the chance to know what was discovered. Because we have to move away from these the stories that we hear in the past about, oh yes, there's archaeologists in the area, but nobody knows what they're doing, and it's all very secret, and they're kind of up in a field somewhere, and nobody knows what's going on. So we totally have to get rid of that, and that's why it's really important to be open about what we're doing, in these particular areas. Social media is also another fantastic way to communicate and to sort of, share the information. And we try to keep our department's Facebook sites, our Twitter site, and even our YouTube site up to date. And, there's the general work of the department features in these, but also the work of the Centre for Community Archaeology would feature very heavily. And some of our Facebook posts have even had a reach of about 15,000 individuals. So, we've been very pleased about that. And, it's always really nice to see the comments and the excitement, associated with some of the community projects. So basically that's it. I hope you enjoyed my talk, and I hope that you will agree that community archaeology and engaged research are very worthwhile endeavours for archaeologists across the different sectors to pursue. And basically all that remains to say is thank you very much for listening, and if you've got any questions or queries, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. Thank you.